Good morning.
It's interesting. I mean, yesterday we were having a debate about whether the King should be involved in this or not. Should he be going or not? And one of our guests was saying, well, it's not a political issue, so he can. But it is all political, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a global issue, which might give him a bit of cover as a head of state. He is the head of state, and then we've got the Prime Minister heading to COP28 later on today. But as a world leader and someone that's respected, I think, across the world, the UK monarchy always has been, it might be cover for him to give this speech. But we know previously, when he was just the Prince of Wales, he took up the mantle for a lot of environmental issues. So it does stray into an area that he is clearly very passionate about. But I think this can only be a force for good, bringing everybody together right across the international community to discuss and to pledge significant funding to tackle the global climate crisis.
Oh, now you're towing a party line there. I think... No, well, I don't...
What?
Well, look, I just think COP28, well, COPs, basically, are a waste of time. Nothing ever really comes out at the end of it.
I'm a big fan of the police, Stephen.
They're talking about funding now and putting all this funding to achieve what they agreed at COP26, which wasn't a great deal. Everyone's just wasting their time.
Yeah, and it goes back to, you're absolutely right, I think it was the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015, where world leaders agreed to bring the Earth's temperature down to 1.5 degrees in terms of just increasing. So we're not on track for that. A lot of that lies at the foot of East Asia, so in China, who are big emitters, and that obviously fuels... pardon the phrase, the debate back home about, well, what are we doing in the UK? All the efforts and investment that you put into green energy and green technology and trying to reduce emissions back home, how much and how significant is that when you see China and Russia and United States, to be fair, also pumping out still emissions? What can we do back home to sort of offset that? So it's important that the whole global community comes together to try and tackle that, to discuss that.
And isn't it important that world leaders are actually there and they're saying something? I mean, Rishi Sunak has already mentioned the word. He's actually said the word China, hasn't he? That China must look to its responsibility as well. So surely this is just growing pressure to get things done. And isn't that a good thing?
I think it is. And I think, look, there are obviously lots of issues with China when it comes to security, when it comes to technology, and when it comes to trade. And, again, there's a debate back home about how closely linked we should be with China. But it's important, as you absolutely said, Anne, to be in the room with these leaders to address the issue head-on, because it is a global crisis.
Except they've been doing that for donkey's years now, and it doesn't make any difference, does it?
Well, I think, it probably doesn't or hasn't made the progress that people would have liked it to up until this point, which is why it's important to keep having these meetings and to keep getting those commitments and that funding available to make sure that sooner or later people are all on the same page, because, as I say, some are moving quicker than others. Some countries are moving to more greener technologies and greener energy and using green energy more efficiently, is what I'm trying to say, than others. So making sure that we continue to have these meetings on an international scale to bring everybody with us, I think, can only be a good thing.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that both King Charles and Rishi Sunak are going to be there, whereas when Liz Truss was Prime Minister, she asked him not to go, and she didn't go either, I don't think.
Yes, yeah, you're right. I think she sent a letter to, the government advised the monarch sort of not to get involved in a particular part of politics. But I think, and we're seeing pictures here of David Cameron, the new Foreign Secretary, here, who obviously will carry huge weight, I think, if he's there also. I think he has been there as a former Prime Minister, now the UK's Foreign Secretary.
So we're presenting a really good turnout, aren't we, when you think of it?
Exactly. We've got the Prime Minister, you've got King Charles and former Prime Minister and now Foreign Secretary David Cameron, all there in the Middle East to try and cajole...
In an oil-rich state where it's claimed that they're using all this to do some oil deals whilst everyone's there, apparently.
It is claimed, which isn't very good, really, is it? Doesn't look good.
Yes, and it reminds you of the World Cup that was held last year in Qatar. Thank you, I almost forgot. Because it's highlighting in a state that perhaps doesn't have the democracy, doesn't have the liberation that we have in this country, that still persecutes people who might be LGBT, doesn't have sufficient rights for women, not the same standard of work that you expect, same protections for the workforces that we have in this country. So highlighting those issues whilst an event is taking place like the World Cup in Qatar, you could hope that in an oil-rich state such as the Middle East, where it's taking place, COP28 is taking place today, you can put pressure on that country as well as all the others that are around
you
the table.
shine the light. I mean, that's the old argument, isn't it? In that, instead of keeping them out of this sort of thing, you actually embrace them, and you're shining a light on them and their society, and we are at least talking about it.
Exactly, and you can...
Even if they're jetting in on their private jets, which they're still doing, aren't they?
And, and some would argue that might just have to be for security reasons. So I think, obviously the King won't be travelling with the Prime Minister, and I don't know, I think the Foreign Secretary is already there. So, that will be a number of flights and people can pick at that. But overall, those flights are nothing in comparison to the funding that will be invested and the long-term decisions that are taken to bring air emissions down and to make sure that our
if
global...
anything happens, though, because it's back down to this issue. It's all well and good to say, well, here's this great talking shop. But we always get at COPs, what we always get is the last-minute sort of scramble to get a statement together at the end. I mean, heck, in Glasgow, Alok Sharma was sat there crying because he didn't get what he wanted. And it's just a pretty weak, bland statement at the end of it. So you come away and go... well, what have they actually done?
But would it be better to have nothing?
Not necessarily, no, but I just sort of think if they're going to do something effective.
Well, I think having these huge global summits, I think they are important because it sends a message to everybody, really, that it is being taken seriously at the highest level. So every government, and these are people who are ultimately making decisions. These are the ministers, these are the governments of all countries around the world. They are the ones that are responsible, and I think people should be putting their faith in the government when they're coming together in this particular way, not relying on the voices of people like Just Stop Oil, who are running riot, it seems, half the time, destructing buildings, blocking traffic and ambulances getting to patients that they need to see. That kind of tactic is detrimental to the cause when you've got now international global leaders all coming together to talk about the issues that people like Just Stop Oil and people that care about the environment, that's what this community is talking about today. That can only be a good thing.
Charlie, good to see you.